What is up YouTube? My name is Alex and welcome back to the Lifting Nomad. Today we're back in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is the end of my trip, unfortunately. But, you know, as one door closes, another one opens. So I wanted to finish this by talking about the gyms here. I've basically tried a few different ones and scoped out the scene, and my experience is finding the best gym in Buenos Aires. So I wanted to give you my perspective, show you where I've been, what I would recommend, and how we're making out so far. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna start with like my 3, 2, 1 of the best gyms I've found in Buenos Aires and what I would recommend you do. First of all, I just wanna say, like, when I do this in different cities, I pretty much have the same idea and same strategy. I go into it with a little bit of research about where I wanna stay. Ideally, I'll pick a neighborhood where there's multiple gyms that are fairly close nearby where I can walk to. And then my rationale is I'll go and do a day pass at a few different gyms until I find one that I really, really like. And then I'll dedicate like a month to that plan, or 2 months or 3 months, however long I'm in that city. And I was reading this post on Reddit and it was talking about like how do people stay in shape, how do you keep a fitness regime. And I thought it was kind of interesting because my approach to fitness doesn't really change no matter where I am. Of course, it's gonna be a little bit different finding the machines, finding, you know, the weights. If, for instance, a big challenge for me is moving from Canada to US down to like South America or Europe, where it switches from pounds to kilos. And at the beginning, that was a little bit of a hurdle. Now I'm just used to both, so it's not too big of a deal. Even though in Canada, we use both metric and pounds. So I think that's probably why it was a little bit easier for me to pick up. But that was definitely something that I had to go through with. So what I do is I find a gym that has squat rack, a bench press, and somewhere I can deadlift. And that's pretty much what I look for. And it's kind of funny, especially in like South America, I've noticed more than anything, the squat racks tend to not be very used in like pretty much every gym. So it's really easy to get leg days in down here, when ironically back home in Canada and the US, I think like it's a lot more focused on like the powerlifting movements. So usually the squat racks are fairly busy back home, but down here, candidly not very busy. So really, really easy to keep up on your leg day routines. So with that being said, when I got to Buenos Aires, I tried 5 different gyms. 2 of them I'm not even gonna include in this, but I'm gonna include my top 3 and what I decided to go with in the end. So first one is a chain here called Megatlon, I guess is how you pronounce it. And they have a ton of locations all across Buenos Aires for you to go to. The first one I went to was in the Palermo neighborhood. I'll give you the address right here. And it is immaculately clean. This is a very, very high-end, very expensive gym. I would compare it similar to something like Equinox back home, like top of the line, very, very good customer service, nice, clean equipment. Nothing is ever broken here. Like there's no out of service machines. If there ever is, they're getting fixed like that same day. Like this is one of those places that everything is just perfect. Their change rooms are always clean. There's always cleaners around. Like it's just a really immaculate place to be. And because of that, it's pretty expensive. So down here, it was 21,000 pesos for a month and like 2,500 pesos for a day pass, which is quite a lot, which ends up being like, you know, $40, $50 US for a month membership, which is fairly expensive even back home. So down here, this is like really, really premium. That's what I'm putting this somewhere in like the Equinox price range. That's like $200, $300 a month. I would put it somewhere in a similar sort of category as that. In terms of the equipment there, it was actually pretty good. They had a couple squat racks, a couple benches. There's always just like the classic South American fuckery, like people not ever doing legs. So you see guys who are benching like 2 plates and then squatting like 95 pounds. And it's just pretty common down here. So for me, someone who's like used to squatting and deadlifting, it was really, really easy to pick up and just start working out like normal. There was no real difference to my home program versus being down here. Very high-end clientele as well. I think this is more of like an affluent gym for locals. I definitely was one of the only English speakers there by default. Like it's like, you know, you can listen to other people talking, and Argentinian culture is very friendly. So there's a lot of like people like, you know, hugging and doing like the kiss on the cheek whenever they see each other and just catching up. It's just kind of common stakes down here. So I'm always listening, of course. If I'm at a bench and it's happening in front of me, it's hard to ignore. And it's, for the most part, everyone's speaking Spanish. So it just goes to show you that there is a lot of like affluent locals going to places like this here. And it's something to not necessarily keep in mind, but if you're looking for, let's say if you don't speak Spanish or if you don't speak that language, it's something to consider, because let's say if you need help or a spot, or you're curious about where something is or how something works, for instance, or even like, you know, you're trying to ask where water is, if no one really speaks English, it can be a little bit difficult to do that. So something to keep in mind, whatever your first language is, and wherever you're traveling in the world. So Meg Atlan, number 3, few locations. This was the Palermo Soho location. They had one in Alto Palermo as well, which is actually in the mall. And I did go to that one and it was pretty small too. So depending on what you're looking for and how you want to do it, they even had more expensive plans for multiple locations. I paid for just one location and that's how much it was. So I would say Alto Palermo, decent, but not my first choice. Second one I'm going to recommend is Sport Club. Now Sport Club is definitely the cheapest one, I think, here. I believe for a month it was like 5,000 pesos, which is, you know, a quarter the price of Meg Atlan. This gym was more of your, and this was Palermo Soho once again on Gorriti, Jose Cabrera, just south of Gorriti. This was more of your classic sort of garage style gym. So when I first went there, the first squat rack I went into had like literally, I'm guessing, blood stains on the floor. I hope it was blood. I don't know what else it would be. And it was like pretty gnarly old school style of gym. They had like pictures up on the wall of like old school bodybuilders. It was that kind of feel. Very, very hot in there. So like no aircon. I'm here in like the peak of summer. It's like 40 fucking degrees every day. So it's like 40 degrees every day. So I would say, you know, for my Freedom Unit users, that's like 100 or more. It's very, very hot here every day. So without aircon, these gyms get like incredibly, incredibly warm. So that was something to keep in mind there as well. But this had a lot of like your old school iron sort of style equipment. So everything is not a lot of digitization of the equipment. Very, very like old school style of a gym, which I kind of liked. And because it was so hot, honestly, like I find I really get a better pump when I'm warm versus cold. So I didn't mind it there. It's super, super cheap in a good location. I ended up moving to a different Airbnb that was a little bit further away. So that way, the reason why I didn't end up staying there for a month was because I ended up moving. But this was a decent gym. Buy It as well is one of the, I think, only supplement stores in Palermo Soho. So if you were going to need like protein or pre-workout or creatine, which I all needed, this was really, really easy to go there because I'm going down that way for the gym anyway. So Sport Club number 2, day pass I believe was 1,000 pesos. Monthly pass around like 5,000 to 6,000 if I remember correctly. And really, really cheap, nice gym for you to check out. So number 2, Sport Club. And number 1, my favorite pick in Palermo Soho or Buenos Aires, Always Gym. Now, Always Gym has 2 locations in Palermo Soho, first of all, which is pretty awesome to see, which kind of divides up their membership, I think. So the gyms weren't like super, super busy when I was there. The first one is on Costa Rica. This one is a little bit smaller and it had, you know, all your classic machines, squat rack benches, like all your cable equipment, all of that. It ended up just being a little bit smaller than what I would have liked. It didn't have too many platforms for like deadlifting. So this is the location there on Costa Rica. I ended up going to the Guatemala location, which is right beside Don Julio restaurant, which is very, very famous restaurant here in Buenos Aires. It's like ranked number 15 in the world. The place is always, always busy from like 11 a.m. until 1 a.m. There's people, I'm Airbnb literally right beside that restaurant, and there's people there all the time. It's mayhem. But this gym has everything you're looking for. Squat racks, deadlift platforms, like 4 benches, tons of free weights, I think up to 100 pounds, tons of cable machines, a separate spinning area, a separate like yoga studio, 2 classrooms for like group workout classes. I don't really do them, so I'm not too sure how good they were, but they were there and available. A smoothie bar downstairs as well that sold like water and snacks and drinks, as well as like smoothies. And it was just in a really, really centrally located area. For one day was 1,000 pesos, which is like $2-3, and then for a month was 8,000 pesos. So you're looking at like less than $20 American for a month, which is like a really, really good deal for a gym like this. So that was my experience. I really, really liked this gym. It's super convenient, super close for me. Fairly well maintained, like there's cleaners there all the time, but some of the equipment is pretty broken down and pretty beat up. You can tell like people have gone to war in this place. Like there's been some PRs smashed over the years there. But yeah, really, really good gym. I like it. One of the caveats I think that Meg Atlan does have over Always, and I've talked about this in other videos, is the barbells that can rotate, which are more common, I believe, for like deadlifting. But when you're benching, especially, it can be kind of dangerous, I think, where it's not even really stabilization, it's on your wrists, where the barbell can spin. So you're using a lot of your muscle actually, and a lot of your power to keep the bar from spinning, and any barbell I've seen back home has never done this. I've only seen it in South America, and I don't really know why so many gyms still have it. Not a huge fan of it. Meg Atlin had barbells that didn't do this, and it was nice to get that for a change, but that's just something to deal with, as you're probably gonna have to drop the weight like 10, 20 pounds. I think it is a lot harder to do it with the barbells here in a waist gym. So that's pretty much the video. That is my talk. That was my thoughts, my talk track on the best gyms in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I've loved my time here. It's been an amazing few months, and I'm excited to come back hopefully next winter. Well, next winter in Canada. But until then, I'm headed off to Lima, Peru to check that out for a few days before I head to Mexico City, at which point we'll be creating some more content for the experience that I have there. So this was me finding the best gym in Buenos Aires, Argentina. If it was useful, feel free to leave a like in the comment section below. Always helps the algorithm. Otherwise, that's it for the video. My name's Alex. Welcome back to Lifting Nomad. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.